Well, I can't seem to finish making one video before a new piece of news in some form or another drops. So IGN did a video on Tasha's Cauldron of Everything called D&D, an inside look at Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Let's go through the article. I did a quick read through. I didn't read actually most of the text. I just checked the pictures, but one of them is the full table of contents. So that's something we'll get to see pretty much everything, and we could speculate on stuff. So looks like D&D met with Jeremy Crawford. So let's keep seeing what we got. Okay. Super excited. All right, so Dungeon Master's Tools. This is this chapter. We can see there is a section here on Session 0. It says, before making any characters or playing the game, the DM and players can run a special session, colloquially called a Session 0, to establish expectations, outline the terms of social contract, and share house rules. Making and sticking to these rules can help ensure that the game is a fun experience for everyone involved. And I wholeheartedly subscribe to the concept of Session 0. Some people used to put together documents back in the day and like, here's what you need to know. You could still do that, but I think Session 0 is great. If you're going to deviate from any existing rule in the game, whether it be a home rule that you make, whether you don't like the way something's handled in the game, or your campaign has a specific set of rules, like we're using gritty realism, we allow you to attune to 7 magic items as opposed to 3. We give you 2 feats at first level, and everybody uses a group-based array. Whatever the concept is for all of that, get it out of the front, get it out of the way up front with a Session 0, and then everybody's on the same page. Often a Session 0 includes building characters together, which is a great idea. As the DM, you can help players during the character creation process by advising them to select options that will serve the character or campaign that awaits. And there's a little bit on character and party creation. They have options to choose from. There are multiple players in the group. You should encourage them to choose different classes so the adventuring party has a range of abilities. It's less important that the party include multiple backgrounds, as sometimes it's fun to play an all-soldier party or a troop of adventurers, and so on. Background they choose defines who their character were before becoming adventurers, role-playing hooks, and so on. During Session 0, your role is to let the players build the characters they want and help them come up with explanations for how their characters came together to form an adventuring party. I also really like this because I've done it a bunch where you all meet in a tavern and everybody's brand new, and then all of a sudden you have to try to... And that's really big on the players choosing to overcome there's always that antagonistic nature, potentially that antagonistic player, where you've got 4 characters who don't know each other in a bar. How do they get to know each other? Why should they adventure together? And if someone really digs into it, more often than not, they shouldn't. So if you establish a party forming together, that can help. Here's some questions you can ask the players as they create their characters to get a sense of the party's relationships. Are any of the characters related? What keeps the characters together? What does each character like most about every other member of the adventuring party? Does the group have a patron? And that's the group patron section. That's in Chapter 2. If the players are having trouble, you can have a table here below. Let's see, we got a D6. They grew up in the same place and have known each other for years. They've united to overcome a foe. They were brought together by a common benefactor who wishes to sponsor their adventures. A funeral brings them together. A festival brings them together, where the characters find themselves trapped together. Okay. All right, let's see. I'm excited because the book includes things they haven't seen before, a bunch of new magic items, gonna knock people's socks off. This is Jeremy Crawford speaking. Okay. Now that people get all of this tied together, I think it's a really strong package of new options, and I think it will enrich D&D. I agree. So there's this image here of Tasha playing Mordenkainen in Wizard's Chess. And then Jeremy Crawford says, putting the wizard chest in that painting was sort of a little spark of inspiration that occurred when we were writing the art order. It was largely inspired by a series of old Dragon magazine covers that featured wizard chests where the pieces come alive and attack each other. It says the DM Tools chapter also includes rules and suggestions for what are being called supernatural regions. The otherworldly locations include, among other things, haunted realms where restless spirits wander freely, the Lovecraftian nightmare of the world beyond the known sphere of existence, or a delightfully horrifying colony of mimics. So here's the Far Realm, folks. We have official 5e Far Realm art. You can see, looks like some nautiloids traveling around here, and these look like eyes and mouths and things. It is a mind-bending reality that is not bound by the rules of the rest of the D&D multiverse, and is that reality that creates mind flayers and beholders. It's one of the reasons why those creatures are so terrifying to pretty much everybody in the D&D multiverse, and not just humanoids. Even dragons are probably like, oh no, we have a massive table of different effects that player characters might have to face in a place where that alien dimension has erupted into the material plane. This is what's being called the Haunted Realm, and you can see like there's some spooks here, people coming out of the walls, and the dog's on edge because the dog knows, because dogs can sense spirits, that kind of a thing. Haunted Realm is in some ways the classic spooky horror area that a group might wander into, and we did it, and just as we did with the Far Realm, here we give a DM a set of mechanical options for spooky things a group of heroes might face if they wander into this place that's haunted by the unquiet undead, or the unquiet dead, or some other disquieting presence. For both the Haunted Realm and the Far Realm, as well as the supernatural regions in the book, each one has a set of triggers that we've provided where, if one of these triggers occurs, then one of these rules options can click into place, giving the DM essentially a menu of things that can suddenly cause the haunted region of the Far Realm, or the Far Realm region, to suddenly jump into action. And in each case, those triggers are tailored to the particular supernatural region so that you really get the sense of being in this place, saturated with a particular type of magic or supernatural power. And those triggers are a mix of story events occurring and mechanical things occurring. And here is probably one everybody's been super excited about, the Mimic Colony, right? So this is clearly, the house is a mimic. You can see the teeth here. The planters up here are mimics. They're down here are mimics. The coffee cup is a mimic. The teapot is a mimic. The chair, this chest, this barrel. The real question is, are the old ladies mimics, or are they just old ladies living in a mimic colony, or are they themselves also mimics? We love including in most of our books dashes of whimsy, and sometimes the whimsy gets mixed up with the horrifying. The Mimic Colony is a great example of the whimsical and the horrifying hanging out together. We thought it would be delightful/terrifying to have this whole region where you wander into it and had this dawning horrific realization that everything you're looking at is a mimic. And so we provide rules for what happens when you discover you're in a Mimic Colony, and that even includes providing a set of what are essentially lair actions for the Mimic Colony itself. We also include in those rules some subtle enchantments for mimics that are in that colony, like suddenly gaining the ability to communicate. So you could suddenly discover you're getting telepathic messages from a chair, which could be played very whimsically in a particular campaign or be a great source of fear. Here's a table of contents. This is what I wanted to look at. So, Chapter 1, Character Options. Customizing your origin, changing a skill, changing your subclass. We've seen some of that already. New classes: Artificer. Class features: Alchemist, Armor, Artillerist, Battlesmith, and then the infusions. Barbarian, then we have alternative optional class features, which we've seen some of those already: Path of the Beast, Path of Wild Magic. Bard, optional class features: College of Creation, College of Eloquence. Cleric, optional class features: Order, Peace, Twilight Domain. Peace is the renamed Unity / Love Domain. Druid, optional Druid class features: Spores, Stars, Wildfire. Fighter, optional class features: New maneuvers for the Battle Master, Psy Warrior, and Rune Knight. And then they have this thing, there's like suites of things Battle Master builds. Like if you want to be a Battle Master Archer, these are the things you should take. Monk, optional class features: Mercy and Astral Self. Paladin, optional class features. They all have optional class features, so I'll stop saying that. Glory and Watchers. Ranger, we have Fey Wanderer, Swarmkeeper, and then a section on the new companions, the Beasts of Air, Sky, and Water. Rogue, Phantom, and Soul Knife. Sorcerer, Aberrant Mind is the final name. It was Aberrant Soul, then Psionic Mind, then back to Aberrant Mind. Clockwork Soul. Warlock, we have Eldritch Invocation options, which looks like there is 2 whole pages of invocations, so that could be good. Fathomless, which is the renamed Lurker in the Deep, and the Genie. And then Wizard, we have Blade Singing and Order of Scribes, and then Feats. Feats start on page 79 and go to page 83, which is group patrons. How they work, and then here are the lists of the new patrons here. It looks like Academy, Ancient Being, Aristocrat, Criminal Syndicate, Guild, Military Force, Religious Order, Sovereign, or being your own patron, which could be very interesting. And I like that they kept it high level, so we heard that the Merfolk King might be one from the D&D Beyond video that I made earlier today. Well, that might be the Sovereign, that might be the Ancient Being, we don't know. Then Magical Miscellany. Here's the full list of new spells, or reprinted spells. Blade of Disaster from Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden. Interestingly enough, the only spell reprinted from Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden. The other ones weren't, like Frostfingers. Booming Blade, Dream of the Blue Veil, Green Flame Blade, Intellect Fortress, Lightning Lure, Mind Sliver, Spirit Shroud. Summon the following: Aberration, Beast, Celestial, Construct, Elemental, Fey, Fiend, Shadow Spawn, and Undead. Sword Burst, Tasha's Caustic Brew, Tasha's Mind Whip, Tasha's Otherworldly Guise, and then we have personalizing spells, and then we get into the magic items. The tattoos aren't separated out into their own, they're smattering with the other magic items. So, Absorbing Tattoo, Alchemical Compendium, All-Purpose Tool, I think that's an Artificer one, Amulet of the Devout, that's obviously Cleric and Paladin, Arcane Grimoire, probably Wizard, maybe Warlock, Astral Shard, that could go either way, Astromancy Archive, Atlas of Endless Horizons, Baba Yaga's Mortar and Pestle, Barrier Tattoo, Bell Branch, Blood Fury Tattoo, Bloodwell Vial, Cauldron of Rebirth, Coiling Grasp Tattoo, Crook of Rao. I'm gonna guess that's maybe like a shepherd's crook. Crystalline Chronicle, Demonomicon of Igwil, Devotee's Censor, again another probably Cleric Paladin one, right? The Censor. Duplicitous Manuscript, Eldritch Claw Tattoo, Elemental Essence Shard, Far Realm Shard, Feywild Shard. I'm gonna guess those are probably sorcerer ones, these shards. Fulminating Treatise, Ghost Step Tattoo, Guardian Emblem, Heartweaver's Primer, Illuminator's Tattoo, Librum of Souls and Flesh, Lifewell Tattoo, Lubba's Taraka of Souls, I guess that's the Taraka deck. Lyre of Building, Masquerade Tattoo, Mighty Servant of Luco, Moon Sickle, Nature's Mantle, Outer Essence Shard, Plain Caller's Codex, Prosthetic Limb, that's probably the reprint of the ones from Eberron. Protective Verses, Reveler's Concertina, Rhythm Maker's Drum, Shadowfell Brand Tattoo, Shadowfell Shard, Spell Wrought Tattoo, and Teeth of Dalvernar. Okay, those are the magic items. Then we have the Dungeon Master's Tool section, Session 0, Sidekicks and the 3 different kinds of sidekicks, Expert, Spellcaster, Warrior. Section on parlaying with monsters. There's the supernatural regions here, the Blessed Radiance, Far Realm, Haunted, Infested, Mirror Zone, Psychic Resonance, and Unraveling Magic. Then we have Magical Phenomenon, Eldritch Storms, Emotional Echoes, Enchanted Springs, Magic Mushrooms, Mimic Colonies, Primal Fruit, Unearthly Roads, and then Natural Hazards, Avalanches, Falling into Water, Falling onto a Creature, and then Spell Equivalents of Natural Hazards. So Avalanches is likely a reprint of the Avalanche section of Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, as I'm going to assume is Falling into Water, because we had the Frigid Water section of Icewind Dale. Falling onto a creature is good. That's something that happens, I feel like, a lot. There's definitely been a lot of situations in games where I've been where someone flies up and they either lose their flight or they purposefully drop down on top of someone. So that's good to see an answer for that. And then puzzles, and then the handouts for said puzzles. So that's the entire table of contents. So again, reiterating the fact that, hey, good for me, the classes that I had anticipated would be in the book, every single one of them is here. I'm curious to see what the magic items are. That's probably the most unknown for me at the moment from what I've seen from leaks and whatnot. And then we have some more conversation here with Jeremy Crawford and IGN. You and the design team have spoken at length about new options for players wishing to change the abilities associated with a character's lineage, but it looks like players can also change their character's skills and subclasses. Changing a skill and subclass are great examples of fun nuggets we like to include in the book that weren't necessarily in Unearthed Arcana because we always like there to be a few surprises. People saw a version of changing skills back in our class feature variant. Changing your subclass, though, is truly something people haven't seen. We give concrete guidance on when it's a good time to change. I think I've already covered this in one of the other ones they kind of leaked at. This is the kind of thing many DMs let their players already do with their characters, but what we often find is that some DMs are hesitant to allow this sort of liberty unless we, Wizards of the Coast, give them official permission. Which, again, I've said this before, folks, it's your game, you can do what you want, the rules are optional, but I also understand that I don't particularly think that that's a great means for Wizards of the Coast to use that as their go-to. Make the game your own and do what you want. Some people want rules. That's why they want rule books. They don't want to come up with it, especially if they're newer. They might not feel comfortable changing it. So this kind of makes sense that Wizards is officially giving you permission to allow people to change their subclasses. So this is really just telling DMs it's okay to let people do this. That makes sense, actually, a lot. I actually kind of really respect that opinion, that putting it in there. These all go under what I often refer to as the follow your bliss umbrella of giving people the permission and the encouragement to make the tweaks that will enhance their enjoyment of the game and enjoy D&D more broadly. So how do you balance that sense of flexibility or experimentation while writing hard and fast rules? That's actually a really good question, IGN. Good on you. So we make things as airtight as possible when you get into, say, a class feature or a spell. Really anything that we expect to go on your character sheet, we design it so that it can be run the way it's written. But the moment we start giving DM the tools, or we're talking to the player directly about the decisions they make about their character, that's where we like to inject these reminders, that these encouragements to explore new options, change things, try out homebrew, that kind of thing. We have this balance that we always maintain between every rigorous, solid design of player-facing mechanics, while at the same time encouraging playfulness, exploration, modification, so on. Here are your class features, your spells. Here's a feat potentially that you're going to take. Then it's very much, this must be worded as well as it can, as clearly as we can, be as balanced as it can be as well. This is a rule and it's meant to be played this way, but the moment we turn to the player, we turn and look to the player in the DM, the mode shifts to, all right, these rules are here, you can play them like they're written, but if you want to explore another direction, you can. All right, regarding subclasses, of the 30 included in Tasha's, not including variant class features or new options, 22 are making the jump from playtest material to official. What determines which subclasses get formally become a part of the Pantheon? Okay, well, we were first concepting a subclass as a possible addition to the game. We're typically looking as what I refer a function gap. And what that means is we're looking for places where a kind of area of functionality is currently not addressed by another subclass in the game. And then they go on to say, like giving players who typically focus on melee combat a way to try chaos magic with the barbarian's path of wild magic. Yeah, we also look for story gaps where an archetype associated with a class may not serving it particularly well. We need to design a new subclass to really dig into a particular archetype. And a great example of this would be the fighter's Psi Warrior. Until Tasha's, we had not done a fighter powered by psionic energy. This is a great, you haven't done anything with anything psionic, so okay, whatever. This is a great example of a story archetype that we wanted to address because it's something that has appeared in D&D before. We then send our drafts to the community through Unearthed Arcana. We want to find out, does this option resonate with you? Does it excite you? Do you notice things in here that you love, or are there things that you love to see improved? We then take all of that feedback, we analyze it, and we look for ways that we can improve each of the options. We'll then take that and make improvements, and in some cases we'll get feedback on something where the message is people liked it, but they want a lot of it changed, a lot changed about it. And in cases like that, we'll then sometimes release yet another version of it in Unearthed Arcana. You saw that with the Genie, where we had the initial version called the Noble Genie, and then a revised version that we released later in Unearthed Arcana named simply the Genie. That's my point, folks. That's why these surveys are so important. That's why I always try to, now I'm filming myself doing the surveys to show you what kind of information I put in there, and then also to remind you to go do it. Because if, again, as an example, right, the Noble Genie arrived, we then got it refined again to be the final version that we're seeing now in the book. And then after all those rounds of playtest analysis, game balancing, editing the text, etc., then the new subclass or spell or feat or new game option gets published in the book. Were there any subclasses that didn't make the official jump? Not many, which is true. We did our math on that, not too many. One of the ones that comes to mind is the Onomancy Wizard, the True Names Wizard, right? That's what it was. It wasn't a mechanical balance reason that caused it not to make it in. It was simply the community told us, we don't need to see any more of this. So I will put that to you, all of you out there. If you wanted Onomancy in the book, you should have filled out the survey and you should have said, I wanted it, because apparently the overwhelming thing was we don't want it, so they pulled it out. Our general goal whenever we're refining anything for the game is this for every class. We want to make sure new options are easy to use as possible. We want to make them fun and interesting, but not slow down the gameplay. I think the Onomancy was a mix of complexity that wasn't balanced by enough fun, and people have conflicting notions of what true names are and how they should function, not only in D&D, but in a fantasy world in general. I see a lot of cantrips from the Sword Coast Adventures Guide in the spell sections. Are those simple reprints or have there been updates? Well, we decided to bring the Blade Singing subclass for the wizard to this book and remove the Forgotten Realm specific elements of it, which includes removing the requirement that a person be an elf or half-elf to be a member of that subclass. We're very officially opening the subclass up to everybody, which decided that if we're going to bring in blade singing, then we should bring in the cantrips that were originally designed to go along with that subclass. So that's the main reason those cantrips appear in the book. Then in the process of bringing them over, we decided to make a few tweaks to those spells so that the wording would better align with our original design intent. Any of the changes that people see are really just bringing those spells into alignment with how we always meant them to function. There's a section in Tasha's dedicated to puzzles in the DM's chapter. Can you give us a bit more insight into what those might look like? And we already saw this kind of from Alyssa from the Dragon Plus article, but we're really looking for puzzles that are also fully D&D, that a DM could take, drop into a particular adventure, and provide a new play experience. Many campaigns are filled with splendid role-playing, sweeping storytelling, exciting battles, but sometimes DMs are hesitant to add puzzles, which is true. You know, it really depends on the players in the party. If they don't like puzzles, it can really slow things down. And again, as someone who streams all of their games, by the way, I do stream on Twitch gameplay every Tuesday and Wednesday night, link in the description. That can really slow down, and it doesn't make for good entertainment to watch people sit there with like pieces of paper and shuffle it around and be like, I don't know what the puzzle is. That's boring for entertainment purposes. It might be okay if you're playing your game fully offline and you're able to devote hours to let people solve a puzzle if it takes that long. But you know, if it's something where you only have a couple of hours to play total, and maybe these aren't like people you've known your whole life and they're newer players or a newer group, you're going to want to have ways to move the puzzles along. So we wanted to take some of that intimidation factor away from these puzzles, showing not only can you incorporate these and do so without too much fuss, also provide suggestions for customizing these puzzles so you could reuse them and maybe inspire the creation of your own puzzles. I won't ruin the solution, but one of the puzzles I really like in this book, it comes with a map of an island, and part of the solving the puzzle is figuring out connections between different things you see on the map. I love this one because A, it's a fun puzzle, but B, it's a great example of us making a puzzle that is fully D&D, because a DM can also use that island map as the location for an adventure or even a whole mini campaign. So for me, the thing I'm most excited about, aside from the things we already talked about, Crawford laughs, is seeing the complete package. When leading up to a book, it can be fun to zero in on an element or this element or that element, but what people won't get the full experience until they have the whole book in their hands as how all the pieces fit together. And that's one of the things that was especially satisfying for me and the rest of the team to craft. Looking at the whole new class feature options, the new subclasses, feats, spells, magic items, and all be used together, and how combination of all these elements will be able to create some radically new D&D experiences. And so again, as much as I love each of the individual pieces, in some ways I'm even more thrilled about how all of these pieces come together. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is available in print on November 17th in North America. I did not realize that it was December 1st in Europe and Asia. That's interesting. I didn't know there was a time frame difference on when you could get the book. And then digital versions, as we discussed in my previous video, available on D&D Beyond, also Roll20, and maybe you're not Fantasy Grounds after the leaks. I don't know. So that is the newest IGN article. I've been trying to keep up to date on the news. Thank you to everybody who's been sending me stuff. I get things. It's funny now, I see stuff, and then like before I can even get a chance to look into an article, I have like 15 messages from everybody, which is awesome because there's stuff that slips through the crack all the time. So I really appreciate when somebody sends something to me to make sure I get it covered. So that's it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Does this change? I've seen a lot of people actually saying to me now, based on the leaks and stuff that I've covered and whatnot, that they're less excited for Tasha's Cauldron of Everything now. I don't know about you, but I'm just as excited as I always was. I'm always looking for new options in D&D, and this gives me plenty of new options. We can now see everything. Those magic items, I'm super jazzed about the magic items. I want to know what they are. I want to play around with them. I've already designed like 6 new characters based on the leaks and other thoughts I've had in my head, plus the new Unearthed Arcana for the next book, whenever that comes out. I'm jazzed. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But I am curious on your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below. Again, like I said, I stream twice a week on Twitch, and then occasional random Q&A streams here on YouTube, which, by the way, there's a 2-hour live stream where I go through different leaks and answer questions that fans have on what I've seen and what they could find about what's contained in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. For example, if you want to know how Favored Foe for Rangers actually works, I go through that in detail. And then again, thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for continuing to support me. Take a look in the description for links to my 50K giveaway, as well as the Kickstarter that I'm part of with Jetpack 7, Blackstorm Realms. It's the closest you're going to get to Spelljammer in 5th edition. So if you want it, go check it out. And I designed some stuff for it. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.